Let's consider now some objections to agent causation theory. The first is, what does agent causation really involve? And isn't this merely a verbal solution? So, have we attempted to solve a real problem with just a change of words? You might worry that to say that an event is agent caused just means not random. Or maybe it just means controlled. So you have a choice, and that choice doesn't have any event cause. And the agent causation theorist is saying, well, that is a free choice anyway. And if you say, why isn't it random? They say, because it's agent caused. And the concern here in this objection is, isn't that just, hiding a lump of dirt under the carpet? Saying that it's agent caused is just saying that it's not random. So I've asked, why is it not random? And you just said it's not random. Well, my reply is that this is not fair. That agent causing it is saying more than that the choice isn't random. Agent causing means exercising a two-way active power in a way such as to bring about the choice. So, yeah, now is that an obscure concept, the concept of having a two-way power to bring about or not bring about some choice? And you're exercising that power so as to bring about the choice. Is that obscure? Well, I don't know. I don't think it's too obscure. You might worry that event causation is just as obscure a concept as agent causation, if not more obscure. So imagine that you have a planet and there's an asteroid coming this way. And when it goes past the planet's gravity causes it to change its course, right? That's strange. So the planet's being in a certain position causes the comet to change its course. And you might say, well, that's mysterious. How does that happen? What's the mechanism by which this event causation occurs? And maybe we can give a mechanism and maybe we can't, but to cause is just to produce or to force to happen. And even if the concept of agent causation is obscure, maybe the concept of event causation is just as obscure. Another couple of objections here. Isn't agent causation theory incompatible with science? Or is agent causation theory incompatible with naturalism? Let's take the science first. The assumption here is that science always explains by citing the event cause or causes of the explained event. If we assume that, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if we assume that, then if agent causation theory is true, then there are some events science can't explain, namely free choices. Now, isn't that unscientific? How can you think that there are some events, there are some occurrences in reality which can't be explained by science? Well, I don't know. Why not say that? Where is it written in stone that every event that occurs has to be explained by science? Consider um, this proposition. Every event has a scientific explanation. Now let's just ask, do we know this? I don't think so. But if we do know it, how do we know it? Is this something that science tells us? Is this something that we discover in biology? No, how could we? This doesn't have to do with biology particularly. This isn't something that you would discover in biology. Is this something that we discover in physics? It's hard to see how. And there are lots of physicists who believe in random or chancy events at the subatomic level. So it looks like we don't know it on the basis of physics. But what other science could it be that tells us this? Chemistry? Geology? Psychology, if that's a science? So this thesis, whether it's true or false, is not something science tells us, so to speak. So agent causation theory may imply that there are some events that don't have scientific explanations, but so what? Maybe that's true. It's not unscientific to say that. It's not to insult science or to say that there's something wrong with it if it just because it can't explain absolutely everything that occurs in all places and all times. So I don't think that charge can really be made to stick. Now, what about naturalism? Is agent causation inconsistent with naturalism? Well, why would somebody think that it was? Well, naturalism implies, remember, physicalism, that everything that exists is what would be described by a perfect physics, or more simply, everything is physical. So naturalism implies physicalism, it requires physicalism, and is agent causation theory inconsistent with that? You might worry that this self, which causes free choices, has to be a soul or something like that. So is it true that if agent causation is theory is true, then dualism, that is mind-body dualism, is true? This self that exercises its two-way powers to choose or not, or to not choose, or to cause a choice or to not cause a choice, does that thing have to be a soul? Does it have to be a non-physical entity? You might think so. You might think, look, there's a causal network. Every physical event is subject to the laws of nature, which never change and which can never be affected. And these exercises of two-way power themselves are not caused, so they're outside of this network. So the thing with the powers, the self, which exercises this two-way power, that self must not be physical. Now, is this true that if agent causation theory is true, then dualism is true? I would say that nobody knows. I've never seen a convincing argument for this. I'd be interested if anybody has an argument for it. So why couldn't it be that a human being is a purely physical object, organized in very interesting ways, of course, and a human being is purely physical and organized so as to give rise to consciousness, and to knowledge. And by the way, also, this physical object has two-way active powers. Why couldn't that be? I don't know. So I would say that no one has shown that agent causation theory is incompatible with naturalism. So my bottom line is that neither of these objections can be made to stick. Maybe somebody can make them stick in the future, but I'm not aware of how. This last objection to agent causation is probably the hardest objection. It says, how can our motives influence and explain our choices or actions unless they cause them? So imagine that something terrible happens in your class. The room catches fire, and all of a sudden there's flame and smoke everywhere, and you say, yikes, I don't want to burn to death. And you make a choice to run out of the room as fast as you can. You see this, you're like, wow, I'm out of here. Now, a motive is a belief, or at least one belief and at least one desire. So to be simple, we'll just say a belief plus a desire, that's a motive. And that explains why you chose to leave the room and why you left the room. Now, I would say that this action is not free. When you see the room burst out in flames, that perception event causes you to make that choice. I mean, you have a belief that if you stay there you'll die, and you believe that you can easily get out the door, and you desire to live, you desire to not burn to death, and it's plausible to think that those things you're having of that motive event causes your choice to run out. So I would say that choice is not a free choice. Here's what's interesting. Even when you make a free choice, we want to say that motives influence and explain your actions. How can that be if they're not causing those actions? So consider this extremely cool gentleman here. And we can ask the same thing that his mother asked when she saw these tattoos for the first time. Why? 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 Well, why is that? Well, why did he make this choice? Maybe he believed that there was a beautiful young lady who prefers heavily inked gentlemen like him. He believed that, what I just said, and he desired to get with this beautiful young lady who appreciates tattoos, and that is why he chose to get these tattoos. Or maybe he believed that these would make everybody think he was super cool, and he desired to have a reputation for being super cool. And we're assuming this was a free choice. Even in the case of a free choice, it seems like we explain the free choice by referring to the motives, right? I think probably the best answer to this is that motive explanations don't need to be causal explanations, that there are just two different kinds of explanations. We can cite the cause, which forces an event cause, which forces another event to occur. Or we can cite a motive, and a motive is what you act in light of. You have this in your consciousness when you make the choice. It needn't be in the forefront of your consciousness, but it's in there somewhere. And it's with a view towards that motive that you agent cause your free choice. So it's relevant to your choice. It's what helps us to understand your choice, and it explains your choice. Of course, it doesn't explain why you chose this rather than that, or why you chose this rather than not choosing it. But still, I would say it does explain your free choice.